Now, before we went to Westminster, I was talking to the New York Times reporter who wrote an investigation on the root of Haiti's misery. I'd like to go back, if you will, where we were talking about Haiti paying debts to France that sort of resulted in the country where it is today. Let's talk about what that meant for Haiti, the fact that it had to pay its enslavers. What did it mean for its own progress?
Well, I mean, the first thing I think we need to remind that is that Haiti is the only country where former slaves paid their former masters, right? This is a unique case in history. In terms of economic development, we managed and we spent months tracking the payments, and we found that Haiti paid France in total 112 million francs, which today amounts to $560 million, right? But just that amount does not reflect the impact on the economic development. So we worked with 15 economists to try to analyze what was the long-term effect of those payments over more than 6 decades. And we found that over 2 centuries, those payments represented a loss that was from $21 billion to $115 billion. That is from 1 to 8 times Haiti's GDP in 2020. So that is quite a big loss. Apart from that economic loss, you also have to remember that this debt completely disrupted the process of building a state, of having enough money to invest in schools, in bridges, in hospitals, right? And those are the kind of investments that pay off in the long term. So that is, a debt that really has long shadows on the process of building a state in Haiti.
And has there been any official reaction from the government here in France to your report?
Not at all. No reaction. I have sent emails to the Élysée Palace and to the French Foreign Ministry about that, but I haven't heard from them.
Because a lot of countries, I'm thinking about Jamaica, for instance, are asking or in the process of asking for reparations from the United Kingdom. Haiti, has there been former presidents of Haiti who've spoken about reparations, even though this technically isn't reparations? This is Haitian money which was paid to France, to French former slave owners.
Right. There was one president, Jean-Bertrand Aristide. He was the president of Haiti in the early 20th century, from 2001 to 2004, when he was ousted from power. Aristide in 2003 demanded that France repays Haiti. And France really did not take it well. And this is what we show in our report in the 4th chapter of our series, that France worked quickly to stifle the calls of restitution, as President Aristide was calling that. They sent a commission that had an unofficial mission, basically, which was to dismiss the calls. And then as Haiti basically plunged into a violent political crisis, President Aristide was accused of violating human rights. The U.S. and France set up some sort of an operation to send Aristide in exile. Until now, the U.S. and France always said that this was not a removal, this was not overthrowing Aristide. But we have a French ambassador who told us that what happened that night of February 29, 2004, when Aristide was put in a plane and sent into exile to Africa, amounted to a coup. Right. And then when I asked him about the possible link between the demand of Aristide about reparations and what happened that night, he said that it was probably a little bit about that as well.
And finally, Constant, the French bank that lent Haiti this money back in from 1825 onwards, do they still exist today?
They do. It's the Crédit Industriel and Commercial. This is a bank that is owned by a larger one, which is called the Crédit Mutuel. And on Monday, the Crédit Mutuel published a statement following a report saying that they acknowledged that past, they realized that the CIC had indeed its foot in Haiti, and they said that they would finance some historical research into this past, which they said was quite sad.
Constant, thank you very much for joining us here on France 24. And if you haven't read it, please do. The Root of Haiti's Misery, Reparations to Enslavers. That's it for this edition of Live from Paris. From all of us on the team, thank you very much for watching.